Welcome to today's conversation, everyone. My name is Lindsay Young, and I'm the president of Three Aspens Media. We help businesses, primarily in distribution and industrial markets, tell their stories and share their expertise. First, just a little bit of housekeeping. For those of you listening live, if you don't have to keep your video off, but if you could at least keep your audio off, that would be great, just for to ensure there's no disruptions. But we still, of course, want to hear from you. So if you have questions, can you put those down in the chat down below? We'll either ask them as we get them, or we'll leave time for Q&A at the end. All right. And for those listening in on our podcast, Attract, Engage, Grow, or on YouTube, thank you so much for tuning in. Let's dive into it. So HubSpot recently reported short form video is the #1 content marketing format, and most marketers believe that it and other types of video offers the highest return on investment for their time and money. So that's why I'm glad that video content strategist Alex is joining me today to share video best practices and tactical tips. He's a video content strategist who has created more than 10,000 videos over the last decade for Nestle Purina, Marriott, eBay, Pampered Chef, the American Bar Association, and more, using a collaborative approach. He's done social videos, brand stories, customer testimonials, and more. And his focus is on building strategies to communicate his clients' messages, evoke emotions, and tell stories that resonate. Alex, welcome.
Thank you, Lindsay. Very excited to be here.
Awesome. So let's jump in with what I believe to be kind of the foundation of our topic today. Anybody that's ever listened to me talk about content knows that I think strategy first and format second. So you need a reason to produce the video that you're going to produce. So that requires, like I said, a broader content strategy, something that aligns your content, including video, with your business goals. So Alex, how can you build a video plan that supports your content strategy?
So yeah, video is not a standalone initiative. It should not be in a silo. It needs to work with your other content marketing efforts, whether you're doing blogs, social, email, your website. I think video can really be a differentiator and really additive, but it needs to be kind of a team player too. So, establishing a framework for regular video content is just going to be super important. Again, very similar to your content marketing. You want to think about your themes, your pillars, kind of your points of view on the industry. And I think you also want to, consider your audience. What questions do they have? What do they want to learn? What topics are they going to be excited about? So starting there, I think, can be really, really advantageous to kind of figuring out what your content strategy is going to be. And then, so I like to, as in a practical way, come up with a video content calendar. Again, very similar to what you would do with written content, but basically have a strategy where you're producing regular videos. You're not just trying to do a one-off video and never come back to it. You want to have kind of an overall plan for how you're going to use video, in 3 months and 6 months, etc. And the other thing I would just add to that is video really interacts well with all your other content. So it can kind of go both ways. So for instance, if you have a blog post that was really popular, that's a great opportunity to make a video of that blog post. And then if you have a video that hits really well, you can repurpose that into some website content. So it can go back and forth, and it can really kind of integrate into your overall strategy.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. So let's talk a little bit more about what has to be in place before we even get to that point. Let's talk a little bit about video types and topics. So one thing that I like to think about, and maybe you can address this in your answer, sorry for springing it on you. Let's talk a little bit about, I like to talk a little bit about how the funnel, so to speak, right? There's some video, for example, that might serve the role of brand awareness, and there might be some video that might be more educational about your options, so maybe mid-funnel. And I know it's not a direct funnel anymore. People talk about that all the time, but let's just simplify it. And then there might be some at the bottom of the funnel, right? A demo, for example, of your product. That might be bottom of funnel content. Could you talk a little bit about kind of, the types and topics and kind of your approach to kind of figuring that out for your clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, like you said, the funnel is a little more, it's not quite written in stone, but I think it's a great framework to kind of think about the different types of video you're going to make. And I think video is nice because it can be really versatile. There's a lot of different types of videos you can make. You can make testimonials, you can make industry trend videos, you can do a product demo, you can do an event video, you can live stream a podcast, the list goes on and on. But yeah, thinking about just going back to that funnel, top of funnel, you might want to talk about industry trends or thought leadership, or there's some news in the industry you kind of want to comment on. You're trying to, as you said, kind of raise brand awareness, get attention. So really kind of those kind of trending topics might work for kind of top of funnel. Mid funnel, you might be looking at a product demo, maybe. Someone's already mildly interested and kind of looking for a solution to their problem, and maybe this product will kind of solve that problem. So that could be a great video to put mid funnel. And then bottom of the funnel, you might want to look at like testimonials or even product comparisons. Testimonials are great because the viewer really can get inside the mind of one of your current customers and kind of hopefully relate to that, and maybe overcome some objections they might have before they want to purchase. So I really think testimonials work really well at the bottom of the funnel, as well as kind of product comparisons. When I'm shopping, I'm not just looking at one product. I'm looking at multiple products. I'm seeing, the different benefits to each one. So, I would just be upfront about it. Compare your product to a competitor's product and kind of talk about the pluses and minuses of each. And I think that's really that authenticity and that honesty is really going to go a lot towards kind of closing that sale, hopefully, for you. So yeah, I think, thinking about the funnel is a great way to kind of do it. And, you also want to, you can kind of go back to that kind of content calendar if you want. For instance, maybe every month you're doing one industry trends video, one product demo video, and then one customer story or testimonial video. And then, so that way you're kind of, producing video on a regular basis, and then you can kind of insert those videos, in the funnel where your potential customers are going to be viewing them. So I think that framework works really well.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. So we did get a question, and I think it kind of sort of goes along with this next question. So we're going to start with this bigger question, and then I'll follow up with the question we just got from Ron. So the next step after you kind of figure out types, topics, funnel, all of that, you can't really make a plan for video without knowing where the heck you're going to distribute it. And by distribute it, we just mean publish it, whether that's YouTube, your website, social, that sort of thing. So why does that matter? And how do you figure out what the answer is for your company? Because it's not necessarily that everybody should publish on the same place, right? So what's your take on that?
Yeah, no, great question. Like you said, there's just so many channels you can publish video to. So you definitely want to kind of think about it and try and be strategic in terms of what you're spending your time publishing to. So like you said, there's social, there's website, there's email. I like to think about social as mostly kind of top of funnel, mid funnel. So that's really for kind of, trying to get attention, and you're really competing with a lot of other videos on social. People being funny, people being educational, people being entertaining. So, you really want to make it short. You want to get to your point really quickly. And you want to have a strong hook and strong kind of call to action. And hopefully you're kind of generating interest from that. So and mostly that's kind of short form. So that's typically, a lot of platforms limit you to a minute. YouTube Shorts actually just expanded to 3 minutes. They're lengthening it a little bit. But typically you're going to be in the minute to 2 or 3 minute range. Um, and then, looking at your website or email marketing or YouTube, that's where you can kind of lean, a little bit more into long form content. Once people are on their website, they're already interested in what you have to say. So they're going to be more patient and want to kind of dive deeper. So you can really kind of expand your video length and really kind of take more deeper dives. So, and I think the other point to that is, you can have kind of one video topic and you can distribute it both short form and long form. You can, you might be shooting content for a day and you can kind of chop it up into very small clips that will be great for social. And then you can also have, a 5 minute video that might be great on your website or on YouTube. So, really kind of thinking about that in advance and thinking about, again, where your audience is going to be. Typically, I like to say, choose one short form outlet and one long form outlet. So maybe that's, LinkedIn and YouTube, or maybe it's TikTok and your website. But try and start with two, one for each. And then you can kind of expand from there once you kind of get a hold of those two channels.
And can you talk a little bit, Alex, about how you decide which channels? Because, we work with a lot of B2B businesses, whether it's distributors or tech companies. So maybe LinkedIn is that one short form channel, right? But maybe not. Maybe a manufacturer actually might reach the bulk of the end users that are using the tools that they offer to build brand through Instagram or TikTok, right? So how can you talk a little bit about the importance of knowing where your audience is as well?
Yeah, for sure. So you want to, like you said, you really want to think about your audience. Are they on a job site? Are they scrolling through their phone on TikTok? Well, you're gonna want to consider being on TikTok. So your videos, they'll see your videos. Are you trying to reach, people in offices who are scrolling on your website, or scrolling on YouTube? You're gonna want to kind of produce content for that arena. And obviously an audience is not just going to be on one place. They're kind of going to, go back and forth. So you're going to want to really talk to your audience and see where they're at. And that's another thing, going back to your overall content strategy, you probably have some idea of who's responding to your blog or who's responding to your LinkedIn posts. You probably have some idea of where you're getting good engagement and which channel is really working for you. I would really suggest, doubling down on what's working and going for the low-hanging fruit first. If you're getting, good response to your written posts on LinkedIn, try producing some LinkedIn video. And, the people will probably be responsive to that as they were to your written content.
Awesome. So kind of getting to Ron's awesome question in the chat. Thank you for asking that. So, and you kind of addressed this already, but I want to be really clear. So when we're talking about where you're going to distribute your videos, that can play a big part in how long said videos should be, right? You can create a big long video for YouTube and then break that up into 1 minute or 3 minute clips for some of these other platforms. So some of that is dictated by the platform, but are there other best practices around length that you can add to that, Alex?
For sure, for sure. So yeah, like you said, the platform, it has rules that obviously you need to follow, but it's also kind of just what works best on the platform. These social platforms, they're really being consumed mostly, on your phone. You're scrolling through. So you really have to kind of grab attention really quickly at the beginning of the video and keep it pretty short because people, they want to, it's addicting. You want to kind of scroll to the next one. So you really want to keep it short, grab their attention, keep their attention. Don't ask too much. Don't ask for too much time, and just kind of get your point across. But then on the other hand, like you're talking about someone who's browsing on YouTube, that's more kind of a discovery engine instead of just serving you up content. So people are searching on YouTube, people are subscribed to various, YouTube channels. So it's a little more intentional. So once people kind of find your content and like your content, they're going to have more patience. They're going to want to take some more time. They're going to want, you to show them all these different aspects of whatever you're talking about. And so a longer video is going to work well on YouTube. And I would also add to that, there are tools you can use to kind of almost have it both ways. Like for instance, on YouTube, you can divide your video into chapters. And so people can actually like, if they're searching for something really specific, they can kind of jump into the 1 minute chapter of your video that they really want to see. So that can be really helpful for some people who just want it kind of more instantaneously, while still keeping that longer, 3 or 4 minute video available for people who want to take some more time.
Awesome. I always like to say too, though, or the way, my genesis is in written content, right? But I kind of view video similar to written content in that, don't be afraid to edit it. Don't be afraid to reduce it to a length that gets your point across and nothing more, right? There's no reason to repeat and extend something just for the sake of length. So that's kind of my take on that. So let's kind of jump into some of the nuts and bolts of video. Alex, so I think the idea of appearing in a video can be kind of terrifying to some people, but for others, they're natural, right? It's taken me a long time to get comfortable sitting here talking today, right? So I guess, knowing that talent kind of matters a little bit, right? That doesn't mean that you have to be a fancy actor to do well on video. And practice makes, progress, or perfect, as I like to tell my daughter. But let's talk a little bit about some considerations companies need to take when kind of figuring out who's the right talent for video, if you even have to have people in video. So what's your approach to that?
Yeah, great question. And I have a lot of empathy because I am not a natural on camera either. So, but like you said, it does get easier and you do get better the more you do it. So the hardest part, I think, is just kind of getting started. And then once you get rolling, you do kind of get into a groove and you do get better. But when you're thinking about, who could be on camera, I like to think about three things. One, you want someone who can be a good communicator, who can state their ideas clearly, and with excitement. And you want someone too who is not too self-conscious. So it does take some confidence to be on video. And again, all these things, the more practice you do, the better you'll get at it. So you don't need to be anywhere close to perfect when you start, but hopefully you can develop some confidence because you want to sell it a little bit. You're not, like you said, you're not an actor, but you do want to project confidence and competency. And so you don't want to be, questioning yourself as you're doing it. And then the final thing I would say is have an enthusiasm for what you're talking about. You don't want to pick someone who either, doesn't know about the topic you're highlighting or doesn't care, doesn't have enthusiasm for it. Because on video, that's really going to show through. If someone is bored by it, if someone is uninterested in it, not excited about it, it's just, you can't stop that from coming through. So you want to find someone who's super excited about, the particular topic that you want a video to be produced about. So, I recommend, again, you don't have to be an actor. I recommend thinking about who you have in your company. Do you have a salesperson who's really outgoing and who gets a lot of great feedback from your customers? They're probably going to be great on video. Or maybe you have a customer who's just super enthusiastic about your product and loves the industry. They might be a good person to get on video. Maybe there's a partner you work with, like an industry expert, who's always, just doing deep dives onto the latest trends in your industry. Do a live stream or do a video podcast with that person and kind of, get them on camera. So I think there's a lot of possibilities, I think, if you look kind of, at the resources you have already, to kind of find that person who could be good on video.
Ron, thank you for your compliment. He just said that we're both awesome at this, Alex. That was very kind.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, thank you very much.
And a follow up to that, and this is a great question. Are there legalities involved when you're talking about people that you're using in videos? So do you have to have them sign waivers, such as for testimonials or other potential issues they could face? I mean, what are there some legal considerations, Alex?
Yeah, for sure. I like to be as careful as I can, and to be honest, no one ever worked with has gotten sued. No one, like, I think that happens very rarely. But you do want to, you just want to be careful, and you want to take people into consideration too. So I like to get a written okay, before we put someone on video, and then even when we're about to start filming, I just like to double check. Are you comfortable with us using this video for, for social, for the website? I just want to be transparent. This is how we want to use the video. You're going to be in the video. Are you comfortable with that? And 99% of the time, the person who volunteered or that you asked is going to say yes, and it's fine. But maybe they have some concern. Maybe they don't want, for whatever reason, maybe they don't want to be on Facebook in the video. And usually that's something you can kind of work around. But I think, making sure you're on the same page with someone, beyond the legal ramifications of it, I think it's just good practice, and it's just kind of, good to be a good, working relationship that you want to establish. And I think that comes around, that person, for instance, if they're an industry expert, they may promote that video to their network. So you can get an even, bigger distribution. So I think, I hope that answers the question, but I think just taking all that into account before you start filming is really good to do.
Yeah, it is. And what I've come across, not as much for videos, but for like case studies and whatnot, the bigger the company, the more likely a legal department's going to at least want to look at things and understand what's going on. So they'll generally let you know. But the other piece that we like to do with case studies in particular is to just make sure that they see what's going to be used before it's used. And that generally instills the confidence and the comfort level that they need, especially, and that makes them more comfortable in the video themselves too. So that's, and in the case study.
That's a great point, Lindsay. And if I could, do a takeoff on that, that's the same thing for video. You want to offer to let them see the video before you release it. And oftentimes, their legal team has to take a look at it. And that's something where, tools like Whipster or Frame.io, these are tools that allow for feedback on the video. And you can have multiple viewers coming in and kind of, putting in their feedback at a certain timestamp in the video. For instance, like, what this person said there isn't quite, correct, is not a great representation. Can we tweak it? And you can see it's coming from the legal team. And then you can kind of, work with them to kind of make sure they're satisfied. So that's where, as you said, Lindsay, the review process is so important, to make sure everyone's on board with the video.
Absolutely. And your next question is literally what we're going to go into next, Ron. So this is perfect timing. So video, of course, we'll just jump right into that, encompasses everything from what we're doing right now. Something simple recorded on Zoom, using your iPhone while you're walking through an airport. You see a lot of, consultants and speakers do that. A lot of thought leaders walking through the airport, talking about where they came from or where they're going or what they learned from going through security. That's great. To a full tech lighting setup at your company location, right? Or a plant, or maybe it's showing off a product. And teams of all sizes, right, can do video. So in my mind, and this was somebody on our team reminded me of this earlier today when we were talking of preparing for this session. It's also important not to let perfection, right, be the enemy of the good, right? So if companies or departments have big budgets to spend, fantastic. There's a lot you can do with that, but there are also tools for smaller teams to get you to better than good these days, right, at very little cost. So knowing that the answer may vary based on budget, location, etc., Alex. So can you provide a little bit of guidance on what needs to be in companies' tech toolboxes for video? That was a really long way to ask that, but what's your experience?
No worries. Yeah, it's such a broad topic because there's so many things you have to think about and so many options for tech and equipment. So it's a really big topic. But as you said, you don't want to go overboard. So I kind of like to go back to your original strategic plan and kind of think about what videos are you actually going to be producing? And what tools will actually, help you produce those videos. If you're going to be doing, a video podcast series, then it might make sense to kind of set up a studio and have lighting and have really good microphones. If you're going to be doing, 10 episodes for 6 months, then it kind of makes sense to invest in that equipment. Are you just filming product videos? Then it might make sense to not invest so much in the microphone part of it, but invest in a really good camera that maybe will give you, really good slow motion or, really beautiful, images of your products. So I think you really have to think about what you're trying to do. And then the other point you said is it's, you're not going for perfection. You can start small and work your way up. So, I would, for instance, I'm speaking here today, I'm using this microphone. It was $35. Not expensive. But because this is kind of a talking head, video we're doing, I want to make sure I sound decent. So, I invest in this microphone. Same with lighting. I know you can't see it, but I have a little light set up here just to make sure, my face is not in the dark. Because that's one thing to get people to kind of scroll through is if something is dark, it's not very engaging. So you want to make sure it's well lit. But and just to, I guess just to back up. So if audio is going to be a big part of your video, I would start with the microphone because people will forgive bad video a lot more than bad audio. If they can't understand what you're saying, it's not going to work. So I would invest if you're doing, podcasts or webinars, I would look at a microphone. Um, and then from there, it kind of expands into you can look at cameras, you can look at lighting. Again, I'm using just my computer's camera, but I do have a light set up, which kind of helps, light my face. So lighting is super important. There can be, kind of barriers to entry in terms of like figuring out, techniques and what equipment. Um, but you can just look at a kind of a basic ring light for $50, and that works great. And then if you're getting into more kind of complicated product videos, you might want to have, light stands and soft boxes, and you can quickly get into, more of a complicated setup. But again, start small with maybe just one light, one microphone. Your phone actually tends to have, a good camera on it. Usually, a little bit better than your computer. So especially, recently as phone cameras get better and better, your phone probably has a decent camera. So you can probably get a lot of good shots with that. So I would start, very basic, maybe a microphone, maybe one light, maybe use your phone, and then kind of go from there as you practice and get better. You may want to improve, things here or there, and you can kind of research that and look into it. Um, and then the other thing I would say is kind of recording software. We're using Zoom today, and Zoom is great. If you do want to, step it up a notch, you can look at tools like Riverside, where the audio and visual quality is going to be a little bit better. And they also have tools for editing, et cetera, which can be useful. So that's another kind of aspect to look at, just kind of the software you're using.
Awesome. Next question. So what I was going to say is that when, you're talking, this kind of video, we're using Zoom because it's easy. It's high enough quality for what we're doing right now. But when you're talking about things that require a little bit more sophistication, higher quality, trying to show off a product line, for example, that's when you might want to start thinking about maybe bringing someone in to help you out. So there's a lot of people who just do this. Alex is one of them, which is why we're talking to him. So let's talk a little bit about the in-house versus outsource question. Kind of what are the pros and cons to doing the video in-house versus outsourcing? And, you know, if you have examples like I just gave of, you know, when each might be appropriate, because I don't think most companies, even large companies or mid-sized companies, don't necessarily have a full-on in-house professional team. So can you address that topic?
Yeah, for sure. So I think both in-house and outsourcing can both work. I think, you know, when you start off, you kind of want to look at what resources do you have in-house that you can kind of take advantage of. Do you have a graphic designer in-house that maybe he or she is interested in video? So they might be willing to learn, an editing program to kind of do some basic editing. Do you have, kind of a beautiful office or studio that you're using for meetings or for events? That's a great thing to take advantage, so you don't have to, go somewhere else and rent out a studio. But I think the ideal is kind of combining your in-house resources with kind of an outside expert, because an outside expert is someone who's done it 100 times, and kind of knows, the pitfalls to avoid, knows how you can be efficient, knows how to kind of set up a strategic framework that will kind of set you up to kind of begin a video initiative and hopefully continue with it, even after, you're not working with that outside person anymore. So setting up that framework, I think, is really important. And that outside person also might know, there's videos always changing, there's always new trends. So there's always things that you can kind of take advantage of, that outside person might know and can kind of bring up. So, I think that sweet spot comes when you can kind of combine, your in-house knowledge of your products and your processes and your people, and you can combine that with that outside person who is an expert in video. And I think that combination, it will be done, you'll get videos done more efficiently. And I think overall, you'll even get them done cheaper than if you had just been using kind of your in-house resources, or just farming it out and not paying attention to it on an outside person. So I think really the combination is best. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So after video production has what's the word in movies? They've ended the movie, or they ended the actual recording.
They've wrapped the shoot.
That's just they wrap. Thank you. I could not think of the word. After video production, after filming has wrapped, that's just the start, right? So a lot of the magic happens after that. So can you talk, and then we can get into the question I see in the chat about, some potential tools, especially entry level, but can you talk a little bit first about the importance and value of video editing and post-production, as well as who does that, and again, how your distribution plan affects that?
Yes, great question. And to me, editing is just so important. To me, it's like the last stage of kind of rewriting, because you can really, put the whole video together in the editing stage, and it can be, a bunch of different things. You can go so many different directions. And, you bring all these different elements together in the editing phase. You have your footage you filmed, you have your audio, you can have graphics, you can insert photos, you can put music underneath the video, you can add animations, you can add transitions between shots. So there's just so many things you can do with the editing. And to me, I'm biased. I started as a video editor, so I'm biased, but I really think the magic of video is in the editing. So I think I think it's okay to start off with, maybe releasing kind of raw clips of what you filmed. But I really think as soon as you can, you should level up and you should really take advantage of what you can do with editing. And the nice thing about today is, you don't always need, professional editing software or a full-time editor. There's programs like Descript, like CapCut, which, similar to what maybe Canva and, whether you think that's good or bad, but similar to what Canva has done with graphic design, it does make it a little more accessible to everyone. So the same kind of revolution is going on with editing. So, I think again, look to what you have. Do you have someone in-house that maybe can kind of, pick up editing? That's great. Do you have, outside partner who can, really turn around videos very efficiently and quickly because they've done it for years and years and they have the process nailed down. That can be a huge advantage and really kind of level up your game. And the other thing with editing is kind of going back to the channels. Each channel kind of has their own format, so really kind of knowing what's going to work best on the channel is kind of the final phase of the editing and is super important as you're kind of getting your video out there.
Awesome. Can you repeat the name of that kind of simpler? You said the Canva of video editing. Did you say CapCut? Like
Yeah, so,
CAPCUT?
yep.
Okay.
CAPQT. And then what I really like is that's for, more social types of video where it's very visual, very kind of, simple 1 minute long videos. For talking head videos, I would recommend Descript, which is Descript. And that is very powerful. And there's other tools like it, but it's a very powerful tool because it lets you edit a video like you would edit a Word doc or a Google Doc. So
Nice.
basically, it creates a transcript of your video, and then you can actually go in and highlight a sentence and hit delete, and it actually takes it out of the actual video clip. So it's a really powerful tool, especially for people who aren't just, who just haven't been trained in video editing. It's a great way to get started with video editing.
I know, and I'm just learning Riverside, for example, and it seems to have a similar function where you can just
Yeah.
delete parts of the transcript and adjust the video. And I thought that was I have people who do the video editing for me, but I like to do a little bit, and I thought that was very cool as a beginner. So
It is. Yeah, it's like magic when you see it happen. It's like,
I know, I
wow.
was like, what just happened? This is
Yep.
great. Awesome. So kind of going into our next question related to this, repurposing, which is one of my favorite topics for any kind of content. And that basically means taking a video, and like today, we could take this video and write a blog post on video best practices and tips, right? I don't know exactly how we're going to do that yet, but that's an example of repurposing the content we're creating by making this video and making it into a blog post, and that's extending the life and the reach of the content we're creating. And I know you're a big fan of that too, Alex. So as you said kind of earlier, video shouldn't exist in a silo. So what are your tips and thoughts on repurposing video for other channels or repurposing other types of content into video?
Yes, great question. So kind of just jumping off your point, Lindsay. Yeah, hopefully this video we're doing right now can be repurposed into a blog. But you can take it farther. You can take shorter clips from this video and maybe populate it to 5 or 6, different blogs where you're kind of looking at a variety of topics. Then you could take even shorter clips, maybe 30 seconds, put those on LinkedIn and kind of promote the blog posts from your 30-second video. So I think there's a lot of different ways you can kind of repurpose. And same like you were saying, it kind of goes back and forth. You can, take some of your written content and, so let's say your CEO or or head marketing officer is kind of, writing blog posts, writing social posts, ask them to be on camera, ask them to do one video a month. And, they can repurpose that from their blog posts that they wrote or from their social posts. There's so much content going out. I don't think you have to be quite as worried so much about repeating yourself, especially in different formats. People who are reading your content are not going to be the same people who are watching your video. So I think it's really, really efficient and really advantageous to look at, where can you use video? I think, your website is a really underused place for video. There's lots of different ways it can support, different copywriting or different graphics or photos that go on your website and be kind of a support for people who would rather watch a video. And just like there are people who would rather, read that copy on your website. But I think it can kind of work both ways. So that's why, we're recording this, maybe hour-long webinar. Hopefully we're going to get a bunch of video from that. And you always want to, I think you always want to kind of keep it in the back of your mind, because 6 months from now, you might have a trend might come up or a question you might get from a customer. Oh, right, I was, talking about in that video. I can go kind of repurpose a 1-minute clip and kind of use that in a different way. So I think video just works super well for repurposing.
Yeah, especially evergreen topics like this. Sure, the tech might change, maybe some of the tools will change, but generally speaking, the best practices we've discussed today probably aren't going to change. And so you could then reuse the repurposed content multiple times in multiple ways over several years. I think that's also underutilized by a lot of companies. They create a video, they post it, and then it just kind of withers away. To not to underutilization. So,
Yep.
sorry, go ahead, Alex.
Oh yeah, I would just add, one thing I don't think I mentioned is, if that video is, maybe withering away, maybe also think about what other formats you could repurpose it to, because you can get written content out of a talking head video as well. So, think about that too. It doesn't always have to be repurposed as another video. You can repurpose it as a blog post or as website copy or even in email content.
Yes.
Work well there too. So just another thing to kind of think about.
And a series of social posts. I really like to take bigger pieces and like come up with posts that can stand on their own, but maybe they're a series on the same topic. There's so much you can do.
Yes.
Let's go into kind of our final question, and then we'll have I think we'll have time for a little bit of Q&A. Common mistakes. I like to end with this, but are there some common mistakes you see people make with video?
Yeah, unfortunately, a couple I wanted to highlight. We've talked about channels a lot, where your video is going to be. And I think you really have to think about that. And again, really think about how the audience is going to be watching it. For social, people are probably going to be, watching it on their phone. They're probably going to be scrolling through. And so you want to, usually a video for social, you want to make sure it's vertical. It's not wide or horizontal, because you want it to look the best on where it's going to be being seen on your phone. And I think I read a statistic the other day, 70% of video is viewed on a phone. Again, whether that's good or bad, I don't know, but that's just the way it is. You want to make sure it works on a mobile device. And then the other, big thing is people are watching with the sound off. I think audio is super important, and I think it's such an experience of the video. But the reality is people, have their sound off when they're watching video. So you want to anticipate that. So that's my, a big recommendation there is to use captions. You can, use the automated captions on LinkedIn or YouTube, or you can kind of create your own captions. Either way is works well. But you want to kind of take that into account. And then kind of any animations you're doing or any kind of, text highlights you're putting up, you want to make sure you can see them again on a mobile device. So, the trend is to having text be bigger, having more kind of, close-ups on the face, so people can kind of really see what you're doing. And then, the other thing is, not video can be a little tricky to get started. So you really want to take advantage of what you're doing already, which we've talked about with content and blog posts and website and whatnot. But I think one thing maybe we didn't talk about is events. Events can be a great source for video. They're really visually interesting. You have a bunch of people getting together in one place, which is rare. Maybe there's a lot of industry experts, maybe there's a lot of your customers. So take advantage of, what you're already doing. And I think events could be kind of a way into video sometimes that might work well.
Awesome. So let's move into Q&A because we have another question. So this is great. This person's asking, since much of what we do is B2B, how and where should we leverage video? What platform do you think is the best to get them to view the videos? This may also be an opportunity. I know this particular person who's asking is in technology software, just for context, but this may also be an opportunity to bring up the LinkedIn's new video platform that is kind of changing how LinkedIn is approaching video. But I'll let you answer the way you want to answer in terms of B2B and platforms that tend to work well. Let's just say for like technology providers, consultants, those kinds of businesses.
For sure. No, that's a great point, Lindsay. I would definitely start with LinkedIn and YouTube for B2B. I would start with LinkedIn for kind of short form content, as we were talking about earlier, and then put your long form content on YouTube. And, to your point, LinkedIn is really pushing video. Obviously they see the success that Instagram is having, the success that TikTok is having, and they, want to get in on that. So they're promoting a new video feed, which, as it's kind of rolling out, will start showing up for you on your mobile device, on your mobile LinkedIn app. You'll see a button on the bottom that says video. And when you hit that, it'll just be like a TikTok or Instagram feed where you're kind of scrolling through videos. So that's getting a lot of attention and they're prioritizing that. So they're trying to get people to put videos up. They're pushing a lot of eyeballs on that feed. So if you do, video on LinkedIn, you are going to get, as this feature is rolling out, you are going to get, a decent sized audience from that. So I would definitely recommend, looking to that. And beyond that, LinkedIn, a lot of people that are in technology, that are in software, are going to be on LinkedIn. It is a good community for B2B professionals and tech professionals, to talk about industry trends, to exchange ideas. So I think, it's a great place to be. You kind of have, a captive audience who's going to be interested in educational content and industry trend content and thought leadership content. So I think it's a great place to start with video for B2B.
Yeah, I would agree. We usually encourage our clients to start with LinkedIn as well. Now there are exceptions, like if you're a distributor that's a multi-branch, let's say you're a distributor with like 6 to 8 branches in a particular state, it might make more sense to focus on more of the typically B2C platforms. They're not really B2C, but the ones we think, maybe Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or whatever, because their audience a small contractor on a job site, maybe isn't spending a lot of time on LinkedIn, but if your target audience is executives or leadership positions, professionals, to me, I tend to go that direction. So hopefully that answers your question. Here's another question talking about the relationship between video and SEO. So I know that YouTube is one of the most used search engines out there, and that a lot of people actually start there. I know especially the younger folks in this world I'm aging myself by saying that. Sometimes start there. So, Alex, from your perspective, what's the importance of video in supporting SEO?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, like you said, YouTube is a huge search engine. It's also owned by Google.
Right.
So that's really important because Google prioritizes video results now. So when I search for something on Google, as I'm scrolling down, I think it's like the third or fourth section is a video section, and it has video thumbnails that are hopefully kind of answering your query. So, Google's really prioritizing video, and having a YouTube presence will really help your SEO. And I think you can use it in multiple ways. You can have a YouTube presence. You can also embed your YouTube videos on your website. And that kind of works both ways. It helps your website SEO because it's increasing the dwell time people are spending on your site, and it's also helping your YouTube SEO. So it kind of does both things. And then, especially from someone in the SEO world coming to video, it still makes sense. YouTube uses keywords just like Google does. There's keyword research tools. There's easy ways to generate keywords. If you just start typing in something into YouTube, it populates other keywords which you can kind of grab from that. So it makes it pretty easy to utilize keywords, which you can then utilize in your title of your video, in your description, in the chapters in your video. So I think video just really helps your SEO, and kind of, again, it can kind of benefit back and forth.
Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna do some quick fire questions for you. Do you recommend having maybe a loose script or a game plan mapped out? Uh-oh, there might be a sneeze coming, guys. Excuse me. As we can control. So do you recommend having a loose script or a game plan mapped out before you hit record? That's a question that we got from someone. I know in the past that I've literally written out my script and just read it a million times before I recorded, and then I tended not to find it. I know you don't want to necessarily make it sound like you're reading, but I guess, do you typically recommend kind of a loose script or an outline ahead of time, or a full script, or what? How do you approach that, Alex?
Yeah, great question. I think it depends on your situation and what you're comfortable with. So some people, like you said, will want to write out a full script and will want to kind of practice that and really get that down. And that's great. And then some other people will just want an outline, and they can kind of go off and riff on those topics in the outline. I think that's another point to make, is that editing is your friend. You can do a lot with editing. So I usually recommend kind of starting out with an outline and trying to kind of, riff off of that, especially if it's topics that you really know a lot about. You're usually able to generate, really good content. And it does come across, I think, a little more authentically if you're not reading from a script. You kind of get more of your personality coming out, which is what makes the video engaging. So that I recommend starting there. But again, some people just want a script, and that's fine. And there's, to help with that, you can, going back to equipment, you can purchase a small teleprompter that can kind of fit over your computer camera or whatever camera you're using, and you can actually read as it scrolls by. And that'll help you, engage with the camera a little more. So, again, different options, but I think you really have to do what works best for you.
It's some tools, right? Like I know Riverside and some other tools also have teleprompter functionality if you want to.
Yes, great point. Yes.
You can upload your script.
Yep.
Okay, the next question. What kind of videos get the most engagement? How-tos, educational, humor? That's the question. So is it going to be, it depends?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. So, if your goal is to go viral for whatever reason, I would probably recommend starting with humor, because that tends to be what's going to get the most views. But again, I don't think that should be your goal. I think you should be thinking about your audience and what they're really looking after. So I think, educational video can be really valuable, and especially if you're looking at it with a different point of view than what everyone else is talking about. That can really get a lot of views and engagement. And then, how-to videos are great as well, especially for some really specific process that not a lot of people know how to do, and that you can kind of show visually. That can be really valuable. If I'm assembling a bookcase, I would much rather watch a video of how to do it than try to decipher, a manual. So, and I actually think the sweet spot is if you can kind of combine some of that. Can you inject a little humor into your how-to video? Can you be a little entertaining in your educational video? And that can be, while you're filming or in the editing process. You can kind of add sound effects, you can add animations, you can add memes to your video if you want. So that, I know that's kind of a depends kind of answer, but you really have to look at where your audience is and what they really want and kind of, steer towards that.
Absolutely. I will say, just because I don't think I'm naturally a funny person, that, I do want to say that I don't think people necessarily have to force themselves to be a certain way, which is not what you were saying at all. That authenticity, in my opinion, seems to be the best. Authenticity and passion can also serve to pull people in.
Yes, great point. I'm not a funny person either. I lean into hopefully my passion, and I hope that comes through, and I hope that works for me. So yeah, like you said, lean into what you love to talk about. That really helps.
Awesome. So final question. We have 1 minute, no pressure. I really like this question though, so I want to make sure we address it. Best practices to keep stakeholders, and that's not just the people producing the video, best practices to keep stakeholders aligned throughout the entire process.
Yes, and I'll try and keep the shot clock in mind, so I'll go quickly. But I think you have to figure out who the stakeholders are and get them involved immediately. So when you're writing a script or an outline, you have to engage them and make sure they're okay with this. Beyond a script or an outline, I like to make a storyboard. So that combines visuals with the written word and kind of what's either being said or kind of what the story is. So you can kind of actually see in your mind what the video is going to be. You can even go further with this and produce a video just combining, still images or drawings with the voiceover or with music. And that really gives a good representation of what the final video is going to be. From there, through production, through filming, invite the stakeholders to the set or to the studio where you're filming. Let them, cameras today, you can replay everything, show them the shots you're getting, get them on board with what you're doing. And then in the editing process, again, using review tools that really keep them engaged, letting them go to the timestamp, they want to change something, letting them highlight something in the video. I don't like this color, whatever it is, keeping them engaged in that process as you're going through rounds of revisions is a great way to make sure they're going to approve the final video that gets released.
That's awesome. And one thing that I can share, and again, I always apply the lessons I learned on the written side to video in this case, but limiting the number of people who maybe are going through that review process with you is a good tip, I feel like, and make sure those people understand what the ultimate goal is. Just reiterating that I think is important, so that they don't get caught up in things like, in case of the written word, they don't get caught up in things like whether a comma should be there. I'm sure there's an equivalent in the video world when you're editing, and instead are focused on the big picture and the message and the tone versus the little details, so that they, can keep focused on what your ultimate goal is and where this fits into the bigger picture.
Yeah, I think I've gotten probably the most comments on music, because everyone's going to have an opinion on music. It's very subjective what you like, don't like.
It is.
So you can get very in the weeds on music selection, and it's super important. But sometimes, like you said, maybe the person who's commenting on that should stick to kind of what's the overall message for the video.
Yeah, let's focus on the bigger picture. All right, well, that we only went 2 minutes over. I think we did pretty well. It seems like we could probably talk for another hour on this, so we should plan that. But thank you, Alex, so much for joining us today to talk about this really important topic. Alex, what's your website so we can share that with those people who are joining us in other places?
Oh, sure. And yeah, thank you, Lindsay. I had a blast. So thank you for having me on. Yeah, people can find me at alexandermechlin.com, but I'm very active on LinkedIn. I try to practice what I preach. So just Alex Mechlin on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer any questions. If anyone, needs some tips or any help, I'm very active on there. So please reach out and get in touch.
Awesome. And Mechlin is Mechlin.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks so much, Alex.
Thank you, Lindsay.